Up, it looks like, guys, we are live. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Narik Chase channel. I'm your boy, Narik Chase, and in this video, we're going to be addressing another great episode of the Streamline Podcast, in which case, the topic of the conversation is going to be more things and ideas and thoughts about Fallout 4. Now, Fallout 4, I've been talking about Fallout all the time. Fallout 4 has been done with for like the last 2 or 3 years, but it still does not stop from being a great game to me, even though there are some things about the game that I wish could have been done better, which I will address in this video. So, uh, this is going to be episode 65 of the Streamline Podcast. We're definitely going up, just getting up there and just the numbers and everything. So it's great. We're on season 2. We're getting it on. Well, on YouTube, it's just like one season, but on the website, it's season 2. So we're up there. But guys, thank you again for joining me on this episode of the Streamline Podcast. Be sure to hit that like button, to share it, and let people know that you've been watching, and that way others can enjoy this video as well. So, what is the topic of the conversation for this video? We're going to be talking about Fallout 4's faction system, and this is just going to be a critique, just throwing out some ideas for possible missions and stories that could have been in the game and could have made for a more compelling story, side missions, or just overall gameplay experience. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and just get into the conversation. Now, the first faction that you meet in this game is the Minutemen. And the Minutemen is just basically the group of just settlers who just find that they're going to defend the Commonwealth from just all types of threats. Now, initially, it was formed to combat the threat of the super mutants years prior to the events of the game, who were laying siege to Diamond City. But unfortunately, this is one thing about the Minutemen that I really didn't like about the game, is that they did not delve into that. Now, at one point, the Minutemen were basically defending against the super mutants, and I feel like the game would have benefited a hell of a lot better, specifically for the Minutemen, had that storyline actually continued. Yes, super mutants are in the game, but one of the problems with the super mutants are they're not organized. Now, not in most of the Fallout games, you see super mutants. You don't really see them organized, except for the original Fallout game, where the Master had a faction of super mutants that were actually organized. And it would have been nice to see an organized group of super mutants laying siege against the people of the Commonwealth, and another way, reason to bring back the Minutemen. So I feel that the game would have benefited a hell of a lot better, because would have benefited a lot better had this war between the Minutemen and the super mutant race continued. Perhaps had a area where the super mutants were actually oppressing people, or just had a big controlled area with the super mutants, which would allow for like a base or something, which would allow for actual missions to actually interact with the super mutants more. So that was one of the issues I had, because I like the super mutants. I think that's a great idea. I just hate the fact that now when we have games with them in there, they're just more or less just creatures in the wasteland rather than an organized threat. So it would have been nice to actually had the Minutemen versus the super mutants. Not only would that actually made for a very important more engaging gameplay with the Minutemen, because honestly, the Minutemen are probably the weaker of the one of the weaker of the groups, next to the road, to the railroad. But we'll get to the railroad when it's time to talk about them. And another thing that I would have liked to see with the Minutemen, and it would have given more emphasis on the Gunners. Now, the Gunners are basically this paramilitary group that just own all types of badass weapons, tech, and armor pieces, and it would have been nice for them as well to have some type of organization, missions where you could talk to them, missions where you could interact with them, possibly join them. Gunners probably would have been how the Great Khans were to like the Legion, how Great Khans were to Fallout New Vegas, and it would have been nice to actually interact with the Gunners and not just have them basically be this souped up version of Raiders. That was one of the points of the game, and I feel like and besides, there's a battle that happened in the game again prior to the events of the game, where it's called the Quincy Massacre, where basically the Gunners end up killing this group of Minutemen and hunting them down and everything. And it would have been nice had the game actually kept exploring that. Let there be more of this war again with the Minutemen versus the Gunners. Again, that would have given the Gunners more emphasis, made them a bit more important to the story, to the actual side missions, and it would have been nice to actually get it to where, okay, you could have possibly resolved the differences between the Minutemen and the Gunners and potentially had them come together or at least have a truce or something. So I would have liked that same opportunity to be given to the Super Mutants as an established group that you could interact with. Yes, you could have your Super Mutants. You could have your Super Mutant. You just that don't want to be a part of the group, and you just kill them. But it would have been nice to actually had an established group with an established base and their own side missions and story and dialogue that you could have interacted with. And also another thing that I would have liked with the Super Mutants that would have made more sense in the game is it would have made Diamond City a bit more important. Now let's be honest, who the fuck gave 2 clicks about Diamond City while playing Fallout 4? I did not care about Diamond City. The 2 best things about Diamond City are when you actually recruit Nick Valentine and Piper Wright. That's it. Diamond City has probably got to be one of the blandest settlements in any of the Fallout games. There's really nothing to it, despite it's a city full of people. There aren't really any interesting missions. There aren't any engaging dialogue like that. There aren't any like side missions, places you can explore. There's literally nothing to it. And I think had it been more important to put the Super Mutants as more of a bigger threat, which would have potential, because I was watching a video and it was like this big, people mod like 100 Super Mutants versus like 100 Brotherhood of Steel, and you watch them fight it out. I watched them have this big thing where it's this army of Super Mutants go and attack Diamond City, and I got the idea for this video. Why couldn't we have had a moment where you are either where you're the Minutemen potentially joined with the Gunners to defend Diamond City? First, it starts off in the streets, then it gradually comes to the gates of Diamond City and even goes into Diamond City. Like, that would have been an epic battle. Now, if you played the game, you probably played the Battle of Bunker Hill, excuse me. That would have made for an engaging and fucking awesome ass battle, where if you don't involve the Gunners or you can't get them to join the Minutemen, it'd be just the Minutemen and the Diamond City security trying to fend against the Super Mutants. If you did get the Gunners, you got the Diamond City security, you got the Minutemen and the Gunners all fighting the Super Mutants, and it would have again made the Super Mutants a very much a really big threat. And also, if you watched played the game, you'll notice that a lot of the Super Mutants that were created were from the Institute, and it would have made an interesting bit of story from the Institute and the Super Mutants. So when it comes, and one of the things that nobody likes about the Minutemen is they feel it's cool that they patrol the wasteland and stuff, but when you have them as a settlement, it's like people, they keep calling, Preston Garvin always calls you to defend some settlement. And one of the things I would have liked to see next to the settlers is you could have potentially like used tactical, put a certain amount of Minutemen through training at the castle, and then stick them in certain settlements. That way, it would actually felt like you were controlling them. Okay, I got 50, and I have to. Say I got 10 that I just recruited. Have them go through training. Let it take a certain period of time, to where it's okay. I could train them on like melee weapons, big weapons, small weapons, explosives, what have you, and then I can send them to a certain city or a certain settlement to defend. Like, that would have made for a fucking awesome as a really awesome interaction with the Minutemen. Again, it would have made them more relevant. Also, in translation to the different factions, you could potentially have the Minutemen join up with like the Brotherhood of Steel. I think that would have been pretty cool too. You could have had the Minutemen potentially join up with the Railroad. Now, it does happen in the game to a certain extent, but not in this. You could have the Railroad and the Minutemen join together to go against either the Brotherhood of Steel, who actually wants to eliminate the synth, as well as against the Institute, who wants to recapture them. So that would have made the Brotherhood of Steel, not Brotherhood of Steel, the Minutemen, just on point. That's one of the things about. That's a whole bunch of ideas that the Minutemen could have had to make them. That's a better and also I would like to have little moments where you're talking to like a crowd of people and you're selecting dialogue and they react to how your dialogue is, and based on your charm and intelligence and all of that stuff makes for a more effective speech. I think that would have worked out as well when rowdying up or recruiting Minutemen. So that was just some ideas I had towards Diamond City, towards the Super Mutants, the Minutemen, and the Gunners, and how those four could have been tied together to make for a more interesting and more fleshed out dynamic of those different factions. Now let's go ahead and get into the Railroad. Now the Railroad is this group of sellers that say they're taking these synthetic humans and they're basically the Underground Railroad for them. The Institute's hunting them down. But the synthetics are getting help from the railroad so they can live their life any way they want to outside of the influence of the institute. Now the railroad probably is less engaging than the Minutemen. Minutemen is more repetitive, but they still lack depth. The railroad is probably just like one of the ones is like probably the worst one because there's nothing to it. I would have liked there to have been missions to where okay, already in game, the two factions that go against you, if you're with the railroad, of course, are the Institute because they want to recapture the synthetics, and the Brotherhood of Steel who want to destroy the synthetics. So those are already two factions that you can probably just rule out. Yes, you could say the Institute. And even with the railroad, if you can get your and if the game was actually made right, you could actually talk to the institute who would just say, hey, you know what? If you get your skill level high enough and you progress high enough in the game, you can get it to where the institute would eventually just stop trying to take over these synthetics and let them go if they want to go, and then stop the Brotherhood of Steel from trying to destroy them. But that's not in the game. But I would like to see more of these. If you're with the railroad, you actually do more sneaky espionage type stuff. You kind of do when it comes to the institute, but it's not like you do things like, okay, they're sending out these coursers or whatever to find these synthetics. It's not like you go to the courser factory and you sabotage it so they can't keep making coursers, or you go to their factory and you sabotage it, or you use the information that you get there to help the railroad a little bit more, which you kind of do again to a certain extent, but not enough. And even do like the same thing with the Brotherhood of Steel. Sabotage them, steal from them, use their resources against them to help the synthetics. So, and again, you can use of all the groups, you could have like the synthetics, the railroad join up with the Brotherhood of Steel to take out the Institute. I think that would be I think that would have been cool. Or even actually have the Institute join up with the railroad to stop the Brotherhood who wants to destroy them all. So I think that would have been pretty cool. And of course, the Minutemen are on the side. You can actually possibly would have had the Minutemen join the railroad. It just could have been this whole great jamboree of things that could have went down. So and also had missions to where like the Brotherhood ended up jumping a bunch of synthetics and they were going to question them and then execute them. That you had to go save them, or have a corpser and a bunch of Institute guys just like have like you go rescue these synthetics or these people that are part of the railroad from like this courser and these those Gen 1 synths. You can go rescue them because they got captured. Like I think that would have been pretty cool, and again made the railroad a bit more relevant, and even had some propaganda, used propaganda between the institute, like against the institute, and try to help synthetics and stuff. Try to steer away from the whole synthetics are taking over thing. Try to like use propaganda, use the newspaper to try to help the synthetics that actually managed to escape. That would have been a great idea. And again, dialogue options would have been great when you're talking to people. If you're with the railroad, you're talking to people and you're saying how synthetics aren't actually bad. That would have worked and kind of fought like the fear of what synths are. So there's a lot of ways. Those are some decent ways. Hell, you could have even made a haven for the synthetics. Yes, that would have drew the attention of Brotherhood attacks as well as Institute attacks. But that's good because it would have, again, diversified and made certain, you know what I'm saying? It would have been great just to have that option in game. So there is that mostly for the railroad. If you're going to join up with the Brotherhood of Steel, um, you could potentially, this is what I would say you had the Brotherhood of Steel potentially take over, because the two biggest factions that the Brotherhood of Steel had to deal with are the Railroad and the Institute. Now, the Institute would have seen them as an enemy because, you know, Brotherhood would have naturally, their technology and stuff is like so advanced, the Brotherhood would have immediately identified them as an enemy. It would have been nice to actually do missions and stuff the way you actually using Brotherhood to just take it to the Institute. And one thing I wish the Institute could have been not just one big place, but kind of several places. So you can use the Brotherhood to attack certain, attack like the smaller places of the Institute before actually attacking the main stronghold, which would have been really good. But the Brotherhood, again, could have had better missions where you get to set up station. And you kind of do in the game already, but you don't have like an actual Brotherhood presence there. So, say if I'm with the Brotherhood of Steel and I end up recruiting Sanctuary to be with the Brotherhood of Steel, you see a whole bunch of Brotherhood people out there and stuff, and not just stopping in one or two guys, like they actually are there. Like the Brotherhood is actually taking over. So that would have been pretty cool as well. Again, you could have actually worked yourself up the ranks of eventually getting better power armor, better weapons and stuff like that. You could actually either work with the railroad to help the synthetics join, possibly even join the Brotherhood against the Institute, or join of the Institute to stop the railroad from letting these synthetics, run the wasteland and everything. That would have been pretty cool. And the Brotherhood can't fucking stand super mutants, so it again would have reinforced the idea with the super mutants, and potentially used the super mutants as a catalyst to have the Minutemen join up with the Brotherhood, or have the Minutemen go against the Brotherhood because the Brotherhood is trying to take over stuff, and the Minutemen basically represent the common man. So that would have been pretty cool as well. It would have been nice to have better missions and not just these dumb missions where you're actually having to deal with like, what was it, where you find technical documents and these stupid quest things. Like, I don't like that at all. It would have been actually pretty cool, like if you'd have downloaded the automatron, because they do have like robots and stuff in the game. It would also have been cool too if you actually had a robot menace to actually deal with the Brotherhood of Steel too as well. Like, that would have been just freaking awesome. And potentially, at one point you end up building the giant robot. I can't remember his name right now at the top of my head, but it would have been pretty cool had that robot taken over that giant robot, and you had to deal with that robot and stop robots from taking over the world. So I would have liked them to have went that way with the Brotherhood of Steel, because the Brotherhood of Steel is fucking awesome, but none of the damn games do them justice. And it was great that this game, they came out in force. There was like a little army for you to interact with. You could call for help. You could fly on a vertibird. You had access to the weaponry and stuff. So I like that, but I wish it could have been a lot more. Hell, it would have been nice if you were able to have maybe like 2 or 3 people that could travel with you, and you had your own little squad of maybe 2 characters. Yeah, 2 characters, 2 or 3 characters. I would say 2. It would be nice if you could have 2 people. Recruit 2 Brotherhood of Steel members to go with you on your missions, and or even possibly send out other ones on missions. That way it gave you some kind of pull and some kind of control within the Brotherhood of Steel. So there's a lot that could have been thrown out with the Brotherhood of Steel. Now lastly, let's talk about the Institute. Now the Institute missions would have been pretty cool too, because some of them could use you as like a bounty hunter missions, such as, okay, there's a synthetic that you need to find. We'll take this one or two corpses, or these few synthetics that we have, this Gen 1 synthetics that we have, assault this compound, either capture this synthetic or kill it. And then if you have a known person that's with the railroad, they can send you to capture that person or send you to kill that person. And if it's like a stronghold, they can send some more synthetics with you. Now that would have been pretty cool too. And also, if you're with the Institute, it would be pretty cool to do. And I think the Brotherhood of Steel would have benefited from this too. If you kind of had espionage missions where you're learning more about the opposing team that you're picking. So if I'm with the Institute, I'll go and I talk with the Brotherhood of Steel, quote unquote, join them, and then start sabotaging them, start sending them into ambushes and stuff like that. That way you thin out the ranks of the Brotherhood, and ultimately have like set them up for like the final battle and destroy them. Or you could band with the Brotherhood of Steel to take out the railroad and get your synthetics back. That would have been pretty cool as well. As the Institute, you can actually, and since you're actually creating the super mutants in that area, basically have some pull with them too, where there was a super mutant faction. You can use the Institute's influence to actually interact with them better, possibly even join them, which would have been pretty cool, because that would have been a better way of the super mutant Strong actually either developing a relationship with you or actually joining. Look, I liked them in the game, and I thought how he joined you was a pretty interesting concept. But it'd been pretty cool too if he was actually a badass super mutant that your influence with the Institute got him to join you from the super mutant. So that would have been cool too, and that would have gave you more emotional, more of a story between. Um, Sean and the Soul Survivor character, because in the game you don't really get that sense, because you don't get much. They don't really have enough scenes together for it to actually be like, yeah, this is, there's a relationship there. So I wish they could have worked on that a little bit better, but you can't always win them all. And also, again, if you're with the Institute, you can infiltrate the railroad and sabotage them, infiltrate the Brotherhood of Steel, and the Brotherhood of Steel, and sabotage them as well. Potentially have the Minutemen on your side. Say, hey, you know, we're trying to get these synthetics back. We want the same thing. You don't want the synthetics in your on your backyard, and we're trying to get them. So if you can help us, we can capture them. But I don't really see the Minutemen actually helping the Institute. But it would be more of, if there was anyone to help the Institute, it would be the Institute joining up with the Railroad to stop the Brotherhood, or the Institute joining up with the Brotherhood to stop the Railroad, which I would have been cool with either one of those stories as well. And one of my problems I had with the Institute as well was Kellogg. Kellogg was one of the antagonists of the game, and you really only have one sequence with the character. And I really wish he had more presence in the story. He had more to do in the story. He was more of an asshole. He was more of a rival in the game. And then after you deal with this character for so long, maybe have like. Because in the game, when you're playing against the Institute, there's a certain part when you're like, okay, you can either pick to destroy it. Your actions, you can either pick to destroy it, or you can join it and run it and everything. And I would personally would have liked to see more, like some secret faction of a secret faction that's inside the Institute just fucking take over the Institute at that point, and actually became an actual threat. And I would have liked Kellogg to kind of lead the charge. I wish Kellogg was actually like, okay, you think he's just this guy at this point, but then you realize he's this rival, and then you get toward that same part where you're like, okay, I want to destroy the Institute, or I'm actually continue their work. Like, it would have been cool if he would have stepped in at that moment and took over the shit, because the dude was completely badass in the game, and he is literally the most underutilized character in the entire damn game. For him to be of such importance, he had almost no moment in the damn story outside of the beginning and outside of when you confront him later on, as well as when you learn more about the character. So I wish Kellogg would have played a more important role with the Institute It was very, and it sucked they didn't do that. So, and also it would have been pretty cool too if you can, if you're with the institute, you could talk to the citizens and again use like the newspaper and stuff to kind of it even been pretty cool for you to like, okay, I want this character to be a synthetic, and then you go scout out who you want to be a synthetic. They go get the person, they make a synthetic of that character, and then that character say like a vendor that's really high. I say, okay, I'll go turn that guy into a synthetic, and then you go talk to that synthetic vendor now. You get cheaper prices or something like that. Like that would have been pretty cool. Somebody won't let you to like a club, synthetic they ass, and then that synthetic will let you into the club. Like that, you know what I'm saying? It would have been nice to do some stuff like that. More important characters do like if I'm trying to do this Brotherhood of Steel, Maxon or something, have him meet me in a location, and then have the Institute capture him, make a synthetic of him, and then have him go control the Brotherhood of Steel through the. I see, like that right there would have been a fucking awesome ass idea. Um, but these are just some of the thoughts that I had about Fallout 4's factions and what I would have liked to see in the game concerning them, possible side story, possible story subplots and things like that. And it would have definitely did a great job with all the various characters that are in the game, especially the damn companions, because there's so many fucking companions in the game, and some of them are shitty, while others are more interesting. And I wish the game could have did a better job of balancing out the factions, which I think would have probably balanced out the characters, the companions as well. But I am done, guys. In the comment section below, tell me what your thoughts are on the different factions of Fallout 4. What possible side missions that you could have gone on had these factions been fleshed out more? What possible stories? What would you have liked to see with the other factions, such as like the Raiders, the Gunners, the Alley Cats, or whatever the hell they called, the Super Mutants? Like, just give me your general ideas about the different factions in the game and what could have been done better to make them more engaging and more important to the story. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on that channel. And guys, hit that notification button because we upload videos all the time. And when you hit that notification button, it lets you know and you get immediate access to that. Also, we again upload videos every week, so y'all stay tuned for those, and we'll catch you guys later.